This is an account of the events that transpired in the Slash Pro Revenge, in which Opie deftly evicted the entitled Karen from her apartment. I was gainfully employed by a modest hardware company that employed individuals in the office, in the warehouse, and as a delivery driver. While the position was not particularly prestigious, it enabled me to transition from the night shift to a desk job. The proprietor, whom I shall refer to as Ray, assumed control of the family business in the early 2000s. Like many small business owners, he was parsimonious, and the position came with no perks, 10 vacation days, 2 double days, 2 sick days, and no insurance. All employees were compensated on an hourly basis. Ray was averse to paying overtime. He had one major customer who accounted for approximately half of his business, with the remainder representing profit. He had reached a point where his business was performing well enough to support his comfortable lifestyle. He had rescheduled 4 weeks of vacation, season tickets for baseball, and had no interest in expanding beyond that level of comfort. However, my issue was not with Ray, it was with the purchasing department. The players on the other side were in a different position entirely. Every aspect of the business fell to one of us. Ray was the owner, and he negotiated large, she was responsible for processing and coordinating large-scale orders with customers and suppliers. Sarah was our administrative and receptionist, and she was very pleasant. I was in charge of order processing and logistics, and I also undertook significant work to revamp the company website. Ingrid, also known as __Supreme, handled small-scale purchasing and the majority of other customers. Ingrid was a challenging individual, and she was perceived as a punishment for our hubris. She had a personality that was akin to that of a character from a novel by Stephen King. She was a malevolent, vindictive individual who incited chaos and discord. She was also the epitome of ugliness and spite. She was a born, once more, Christian, because she attended church every Sunday, she believed she could do no wrong. Ingrid, for reasons unknown, disliked me from my first day. It is unclear if she perceived me as a threat or was merely experiencing a mood swing. I am not a psychologist, but I am 98% certain that she was bipolar. She was not pleased about my joining the company. Initially, she maintained a civil tone, but Ingrid frequently engaged in gossip. Since I was always at my desk, I was an easy target for her remarks, which were often negative and unkind. She was spirited and, in most cases, her objections were based on projection. She would complain about actors she disliked because they were overweight. Ingrid was well over 300 pounds or had an annoying voice. She had a slight lisp. She would cite the Bible to justify her opposition to same-sex marriage. She was twice divorced and complained about the cost of Obamacare. She had no insurance for herself or her children. She had a handful of pre-existing conditions. She expressed disdain for the current administration, citing instances where she would recount stories about her interactions with her son at a grocery store. She would often express her disapproval of immigrants, particularly Polish individuals, and would even go as far as to suggest that they should either speak English or leave the country. Despite these personal opinions, I attempted to maintain a professional demeanor and focus on the task at hand. However, as time passed, she began to direct her negative sentiments towards me, leading to a gradual deterioration in our relationship. Ingrid would take any slight, no matter how minor, and use it as an opportunity to complain to Ray. She was aware that he was aware of her erratic behavior, and he chose to ignore it. However, Ingrid was not pleased when she discovered that I had not entered orders that she claimed to have given me a week ago. I promptly addressed this issue by date-stamping every order that came across my desk and checking with Ray, Sarah, and other relevant parties for new orders every hour. In response, I was accused of being at fault and of being untrustworthy. The situation reached a tipping point when one of our larger customers began purchasing from us. This was due to the fact that their purchaser was a friend of Ingrid's. She facilitated the connection between the businesses and Ray, who provided her with a fair commission. I had also met a different purchaser from another large manufacturing company that uses products similar to ours. Ray informed me that if I could persuade them to place an initial order, he would provide me with the same commission. He indicated that he would provide the same commission, but that I would be responsible for generating new business, as he was not inclined to undertake this additional work at the present time. As previously stated, this position offered no additional benefits, so any opportunity for additional compensation was highly desirable. I pursued this lead aggressively, contacting the potential customer via phone, email, and in-person meetings. After considerable effort, I was able to secure the agreement to submit an order. I was extremely pleased with this outcome. Throughout this process, Ingrid had been expressing doubt and skepticism about the venture. Ingrid was reluctant to allow anyone else to achieve what she had done. Sarah was on vacation, so Ingrid had assumed responsibility for the front desk for the duration of her absence. Despite my best efforts, I did not receive a response from the purchaser. I finally managed to contact him a month later and inquired about the sample order. He informed me that he had called a few weeks prior and was told by a representative of our company that we did not have the capacity to supply what they required. I asked him on what date he had called. Ingrid's telephone responses were found to be unsatisfactory during the aforementioned week. Her actions were perceived as unprofessional and detrimental to the workplace. Despite the potential impact on my career advancement, I chose to rise above such tactics and maintain my composure. However, her actions have now prompted a stronger response. I was saving for a down payment on a house, yet Ingrid's actions have put my future on hold. I have decided that I will not tolerate this and will pursue the matter further. Ingrid had been taking online courses at night. Ingrid was enrolled in a local community college, pursuing a degree in psychology. She was, in fact, as intelligent as she was physically slight, benevolent, and affable. She often completed her coursework in the office after Ray had departed for the day. On one occasion, she requested that I take an online quiz for her. I was still enraged at her for misappropriating my commission, so I was not inclined to assist her in any way. However, she uttered a statement that I had never heard her utter before. This was followed by the words, "It's an earth science quiz, and I can't lie." I paused to process this sentence. It was evident that her statement was not truthful because she had deceived my client. Furthermore, it was a significant contradiction because she had requested that I take a test for her, yet she did not intend to follow through on her request. She believed that she could not lie and deny her beliefs on an earth science quiz because she believed that the earth was created in 7 literal days and is approximately 6,000 years old. She also believed that humans and dinosaurs lived concurrently. She needed someone who was knowledgeable about and understood the Cretaceous period to pass a test and avoid failing. I saw an opportunity to advance my own interests. I could take the test and she would have to repeat the class, which would be inconvenient for her. Alternatively, I could be a son of AB, as she would likely perceive me. I chose the latter. I informed her that I would take the test and any other $420 worth of classes, including Earth Science 101, Spanish 101, and Introduction to Psychology. I also considered the possibility of hiring a therapist who was unable to pass an introductory psychology class. I ended up making $200 by the end of the semester. Then, she approached me with her request. She needed assistance with writing a research paper. I offered to help her for $50. I had the assignment in front of me within a few hours. It was a relatively simple task, requiring only 5 pages. The material is not particularly challenging, even an 8th grade student could complete it in an hour. However, those who are lazy and unintelligent will remain so. At this time, I had received an offer from a much larger company in the downtown area. I was planning to submit my resignation once Ray returned from one of his brief vacations. I had the opportunity to harm her and develop an exit strategy. I began searching for information on how to write a research paper for a class. I selected the first result that appeared in my search results. I made no changes, except for the name and dates. I submitted my resignation 2 weeks before I was scheduled to leave. I gave Ingrid the paper she requested, but she did not. Despite my best efforts to proofread it, she simply submitted the paper and continued on her merry way. What transpired next I learned from Sarah after I had departed. The professor immediately recognized the paper as plagiarized and sought the dean's involvement. Ingrid was so careless that she attempted to justify her actions by claiming I was the plagiarist. I did not plagiarize that paper, rather, the individual I had been paying to complete all my coursework did so. As a result, Ingrid was expelled from the institution for academic dishonesty and plagiarism, prohibited from attending any of the satellite schools or affiliate programs. Furthermore, she was denied a refund on her tuition. As a result, her aspiration to become a therapist was thwarted, as all of the nearby community colleges were part of the affiliate program. She was left with no savings and a semester of student loan debt. On my last day, I made sure to stop by the office and express my gratitude to Ingrid for teaching me so much during my time working here. I hope she gained something from our collaboration as well. Opie, I would have loved to see her face when you said that. In the following Reddit post, I present a personal account from a metropolitan area with a large tourist population. The city in question is built around a theme park, which is why Opie's remarks pertain to Florida. I was a manager in the hotel's recreational division. One day, my boss, whom I will refer to as Mary, enters the shared manager's office and begins searching for something. She initiates a brief conversation about work. It is worth noting that Manu, who is 2 years my senior, was acting as head of department while searching to replace my previous boss, who recently resigned. He was a highly regarded individual within the company, and his departure will undoubtedly have a significant impact. As she was speaking, she abruptly stopped and said, "By the way, you need to shave. Your beard makes you look like a terrorist, and I don't employ terrorists." This is a joke between colleagues. However, I am half Indian and do look Middle Eastern. I have been the target of similar comments since middle school. Additionally, we are not close, so I reply as calmly as I can muster, "I understand you are attempting to be funny." While the remark was intended to be humorous, it was perceived as rather ignorant on my end. Therefore, I would appreciate it if you would refrain from making such comments in the future. In response, Mary stated, "I am ignorant. We will see how ignorant I am during your annual review." She then abruptly left the room. It would seem that this is an easily resolvable issue. The HR department has previously been aware of similar instances of rude behavior and has not taken action. However, the latest incident involved a threat to my salary, which I find unacceptable. Consequently, I have decided to contact HR in order to resolve the matter. He was instructed not to divulge the information to anyone, but rather to document it in case another individual reports a similar incident, thus enabling the establishment of a pattern of behavior. However, the individual in question felt compelled to discuss the matter with Mary. I reiterated that I was comfortable with this decision, as she appeared to be the type who would seek retribution. He assures me that there will be no retaliation and states that he will contact me later for a statement, which I found peculiar. Why not make a statement now and conclude the matter? A week passes, and I follow up with Boyd because I have been getting some less than pleasant vibes from Mary. Nothing substantial has occurred, but when I inquired about the incident, he informed me that Mary had merely been joking, but she had agreed to refrain from making similar remarks in the future. I was reassured that my annual review was not in jeopardy. However, a month later, a new director for our department was hired, and I was taken aback. I was surprised to learn that the new director of our department was none other than Joe, my former roommate and supervisor on the front desk. I had become accustomed to the practice of nepotism within the hotel, as it seemed to be a common occurrence. I had not had much contact with Joe, but I was pleased to see him take on a leadership role once again. In hindsight, I realized that I had been rather naive about the nature of the hotel's operations. He is disagreeable, making snide remarks and changing my schedule at the last minute each week. He also schedules me on my established days off and gives away opportunities to my colleagues, who are never considered for these assignments. He has also required me to take improvement classes, which is an unusual practice. However, up to that point, nothing had happened that could be considered problematic. One day, I was abruptly written up for the first time in my professional career. The incident involved my refusal to inform a superior of my departure from the premises. Instead of explicitly stating, "Hey Joe, I'm leaving for the day," I had simply departed without uttering any such words. This was not an established policy, either written or otherwise. When I informed my colleagues of my departure, I did so as a courtesy. I was aware that not all of my colleagues adhere to the same standard of communication regarding their departure times. In fact, I had observed this personal practice and had even corroborated it with my colleagues after inquiring about it. Given that my colleagues are not held to the same arbitrary standard and having never been subjected to such disciplinary action, I am aware that this is a direct attack on my character. My performance review is now at risk. Furthermore, Joe has revealed that Mary requested my presence after I departed. Upon discovering that I was no longer at the premises, she initiated the disciplinary process, which represents a second instance of procedural irregularity. The third incident occurred when the individual in question attempted to protect himself when I presented evidence indicating retaliation and discrimination in the workplace. I discovered that he had not properly documented his discussion with me or Mary and that he was essentially reacting to the situation as it arose. I decided to write my long statement. I informed Boyd that I was dissatisfied with his handling of the matter and he responded by accusing me of dramatizing the situation. He displayed a dismissive attitude, rolling his eyes and making other gestures that conveyed his lack of concern. After some time, I gathered all the available evidence, including my written account and that of my colleague. The documentation included records written by the workers themselves, company policy manuals, schedules for the previous month, including the fictitious classes that I was forced to attend, schedules of my colleagues, witness statements from peers who had witnessed Mary's other demeaning actions, and a few other items. The subsequent step was to inform Joe of my displeasure. Given his previous behavior, I anticipated a strong reaction. After ensuring that he was visibly upset, I resigned with a 2-week notice. I provided the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission with a letter and all relevant evidence the following night. I explicitly referenced Mary Boyd and Joe by name and indicated that I was contemplating legal action. Several weeks later, I had my girlfriend contact my former employer under the pretense of inquiring about a potential position. I provided her with the extension to Joe's desk, as I had predicted, and she relayed the information to him. I was so enamored of the falsehoods that I even got my resignation date and attendance record wrong. These discrepancies can be verified and bolster my case. I attempted a similar ploy with Boyd, but he was astute enough to direct my girlfriend to a third-party reference vendor that the company is supposed to use for these calls. I then proceeded to send my former employer a cease and desist letter with a transcript of the call, indicating that I might sue for slander. Some time passed, and the other day I was at the bank with my girlfriend when I received a call from an old colleague. The worker missed the call, but I resigned to call him back later. Less than an hour later, I received 5 to 6 calls and text messages informing me that Mary Jo and Boyd were both fired that same day and had walked out of the building. Mary cried. It would appear that the corporate office was contacted by the EEOC, which launched its own internal investigation, matching its records with my evidence. The EEOC sent me a return letter with a company statement, which was fallacious. Their interviews with the Three Stooges, but it seems likely that they decided it was easier to nip it in the bud and sack their butts to be safe. In this case, karma may be a bit of a factor, but it is unlikely that she had any involvement. Our next Reddit post is from you, may I call you mate? In college, my 2 friends and I decided to find a place together off campus. We found a beautiful 3, the rental price for the bedroom was surprisingly affordable. The basement of the house was listed as a separate apartment, but as it had a separate entrance in the indoor stairwell that had been blocked off, we were not concerned. The thermostat was located upstairs. Then, the neighbor moved in from upstairs and began making loud, disruptive noises. This adult woman would call her mother and scream at her to pay for her cell phone bills and give her grocery money, which she used to purchase items from Taco Bell and cheap tequila. She would also scream at any male companion she was sleeping with to bring her meth. On one occasion, she brought home 3 puppies to scream at. We were intimidated by this woman and the noise was distressing. Additionally, we were naive enough to sign a lease stating that we were responsible for all utilities, which meant that we were now financing her gas, water, and electric. With only 2 months remaining on the lease, we believed we could simply terminate it. However, she began smoking frequently, which further exacerbated the situation. The landlord asserted that the tenant had ceased smoking permanently at the time of signing the lease. However, this cessation was only temporary, lasting a mere 2 days. This was due to the fact that, during the winter months, the tenant had the heating running almost continuously, resulting in smoke wafting up from the vents. Consequently, the apartment and all the tenant's belongings began to reek of smoke. The tenant contacted the landlord, citing the terms of the lease, which stated that the apartment was to be a non-smoking space. The landlord informed us that, technically, we could designate our apartment as non-smoking. This was despite the fact that our apartment shared ventilation with a smoking apartment. At this point, I was aware of several leasing laws. My 2 roommates were planning to leave for a 2-week vacation. During their week-long vacation, my roommates were online students, while I was a residential student. This left me alone in the apartment with the smoker in the basement. I was unable to sleep or eat due to the adverse effects of secondhand smoke on my stomach, which caused persistent discomfort. After 3 days, I was severely affected. I devised a plan, consulted the forecast, and determined that the lowest temperatures would be in the 20s throughout the week. I borrowed a friend's ultra-insulated sleeping bag and purchased a ski mask with eye holes. I donned my stocking cap, silk long underwear, woolen socks, and down parka. I procured tea, hot cocoa, and ramen, and prepared to subsist on a diet of hot liquids. I disabled the heating system. On the first day, she was vocalizing her displeasure with her mother for forcing her to relocate to this frigid apartment. On the second day, she was expressing her frustration with her boyfriend or meth dealer because he was not allowing her to move in with him. On the third day, she was complaining to the landlord about how she was experiencing severe discomfort from the cold. On the fourth day, the landlord arrives at my door. I greet him in full ski mask, parka, and stocking cap array, giving the impression that I am preparing to rob Santa Claus at the North Pole. He inquires about the temperature in the house. I respond that I find the cigarette smoke to be uncomfortably warm. On the fifth day, she complains about the tenants upstairs to anyone who will listen. I remain upstairs, clutching my car keys and pepper spray, with 911 on my phone. She ultimately decides to leave and move. Despite his recent release from prison for stabbing Travis, Greg has taken up residence in the Epping house in the woods, which is known for its vicious dogs. On the 6th day, she has departed. I silently bless Greg. The moral of this story is that there is often a bloody reason why rent seems too good to be true. This could be described as giving someone the cold shoulder. If you appreciate this video, please subscribe to our channel, as we upload new videos from Reddit every day.